You know what I
Smart,
mean? You
because,
need every piece of information you can get.
it's smart because at the beginning, not at the right at the beginning, but in the early preseason, I was one of those guys that did doubt the Patriots. Although I knew how excellent a coach Mike Vrabel was
Sure.
going into it, I just didn't believe that they had the staffing on the field to do it. But boy, have they proved me wrong. I bought in like mid-season. I was like, okay, yeah, these guys are going to be good. I didn't think they'd be like Super Bowl good, but once you get to the playoffs, it's always when it's like when they played the Texans last week. I said these are going to be the two biggest defensive brains out there. But then I didn't realize that this was. I think I told my dad this. This is the best of the two worlds that the Patriots ever had or ever seen. It's the big brain that on defense that Mike Vrabel had in Tennessee, because don't forget, he took the Tennessee Titans to an AFC Championship game, led them all the way there when they lost everybody. Tannehill goes down, Brown goes down, Derrick Henry went down. Coached up very well, but his defensive scheme and mind is one of the best you've ever seen in a head coach, and it's matched with that perfect Tom Brady scheme on offense. The Tom Brady game plan that keeps you safe and gives you every option to make the right decision, to have the defense, if they get a turnover, they're going to allow that offense to capitalize. And it just matches beautifully.
Well said. So listen, I want to get into this boxing topic real quick. Before we get into it ourselves, I want to kind of catch everyone up to speed. Okay. So this was posted by Richard on his Twitter. In fact, I'm just going to share the entire screen here. Let's do that. Let me see. Is this something we can all see? Oh, it looks like shit. Let me do that. I'm going to have to make it bigger. That's okay. How's that look, Matt? Is it readable? Oh, we're going to have to wait.
Yeah, somewhat. Looks a little readable.
Let me go one more, I guess. Still sucks. All right. Well, we'll live with it. Actually, you know what? Let me go one more. All right. Well, put your glasses on, guys, because you're going to need them. Listen, first of all, this was a hilarious thing he tweeted today, which I very much agreed with. It was hilarious. He said, it was crazy. I think Madrimov is a great / elite top fighter in the division, but the announcer said 100 times during the fight that he had Ebola, COVID, chickenpox, scarlet fever, and the flu all at the same time while he fought Virgil Ortiz. Hilarious. That was funny. But anyway, this is the tweet that has caused a bit of a stir with boxing fans. First of all, it goes back to this weekend, okay, where a lot of the flack I started to see on Reddit and other boxing, pages and groups that I'm in. And man, the hate was crazy this weekend. But he put, I wish boxing fans had to pass a basic IQ test before being allowed to subscribe to any network to watch it or comment on any boxing related post. It would be a basic test: tie shoes, alphabet, basic addition and subtraction, etc. So that kind of set the stage. And then he posted this today, and this is what got fans a bit more upset of the whole situation. So Rich, but skills don't pay the bills in boxing and never have. An effective negotiation while protecting the fighter contractually at a high level is what pays the bills and their kids' bills and their kids' bills. You get what you negotiate, and the rest is a bunch of bullshit from fake media people and brain-dead negative fans. We will see who is there after paying the bills and looking after you when you can't throw a punch anymore. I promise it won't be the promoter, the media people, or the negative fans. Only a clown says money does not matter in boxing. Loyalty is shown by writing that fighter a check, and that's it. Period. The industry loves the uncle turned manager or dad or random business guy or coach or anyone that lacks the experience of what it actually takes or has been in the wars and wanted to prove it. Often millions are left on the table. Mind-blowing how people know they have no clue how to manage a fighter properly and will tell that a fighter they do and put themselves before the fighter, then sell the fighter on loyalty. If you were loyal, you would not pretend to do a job you can't or send the fighter to someone that does. Stay tuned this week and next. I'll show you how it's done at the highest level. Fake bums don't have half the heart their fighters do in the ring to fight outside of it, but some of us do it, and some of us do and do it well. So I'm gonna show D Styles. That's all I'm gonna show. Wait, I think he tweet posted actually, but so I want to show this. This was a post from over the weekend on the 3 knockdown rule with Mario Lopez and Steve Kim. An excellent show. You should subscribe to that if you're a boxing fan.
Them not
But
wanting.
this is what he said on a post that was entitled Rick. I think is it Merrigan? I don't know. How do you say it, Matt? Do you know?
Mirrigan.
I always thought it was that or Moranigan or something weird. And I always said it wrong. I knew it was wrong. I just have really rarely ever heard people say it right to the point where I don't even recognize it anymore. But anyway,
super common name.
No, for sure. Here's the thing though. I recognize the name, right? This is somebody who is deep roots in boxing and has, time and time again proven his merit in the last, I'd say like 6 years at least on this level, right? But anyway, so this was titled that he's the scapegoat and the real problem runs deeper and it's all about money. So this is what Steve Kim had to say.
That Golden Boy and Oscar would have acquiesced to Rick Merigian's request of $10 million.
He said it wrong too.
Let's say that Golden Boy and Oscar would have acquiesced to Rick Merigian's request of $10 million, not 7. But let's say, you know what, we'll give you 12. Do you think that clause would have been an issue? No, I don't. This is about them not wanting to take the risk. I know I'm going to look like the bad guy, and people always say, oh, fighters aren't afraid. Managers are. This game today is not about fights. I hate to say it. I hate to be the bad guy, but that's what I'm going to do. This is about risk mitigation. And this is all about risk versus reward. And the bottom line is this. If they thought they were going to beat Bout Wrasslin, I believe they would have come to a resolution. That's my opinion.
Wow. That is telling in a major way. What the fuck? What did I do? Oops. My bad. So anyway, Matt, I want to ask you your opinion right off the bat. How do you feel about this situation? What were your initial thoughts? What are your thoughts today? Who do you blame, I guess?
I mean, bro, it's hard not to blame Golden Boy when this keeps happening. And it's happened over the years with him. It happened with Canelo. It happened with Ryan, although they found a number where that Ryan liked eventually.
Well said.
But at the same time, obviously managers are scared to risk that. What manager isn't like? No manager outside of no manager promoter outside of like Eddie Hearn is pushing their fighters to the fire. But even when he's pushing their fighters to the fire, he's already built them up to the point where they're going to be the higher paid. I was having this debate earlier today with somebody where it's like, people think it's just the 7. No, not even like, yeah, he said like Virgil wants like 7 million, 10 million almost.
10
right?
million, yeah.
That's not the only number they got to deal with. That, you got to remember Bout Wrasslin, who's been a unified champion, who's been a headliner in his part of the country, who's arguably selling more tickets. He's going to want more than $10 million. Is this? And it breaks down to, do you think this is a $20 million fight? I don't think so if it's not pay-per-view. And if it's $20 million, who are you going to put on the undercard? Are you going to fill it with Golden Boy and matchroom fighters? Or are you going to try to slide Gabriela Fondura under there and hope somebody shows up?
Yep.
And then at that point, where are you going to put the fight? Because if you think this is a $20 million fight and you think Golden Boy and Matchroom are going to try to make their money back, if they're going to co-promote, you got to go to Philly. You got to go to Philly or to Atlantic City because it's not like don't get me wrong, I love Virgil. Virgil's a known name here, but it's not like he's moving tickets in the Dickies Arena, and that's where that's his biggest arena he's headlined in Fort Worth, is the Dickies Arena. So it's like, it's a lot, but it's hard to not look at Golden Boy and think like this keeps happening. It seems like they're running into that old situation that Top Rank was in when their fighters would hit a certain point to where this is as far as you're taking me, and I'm trying to make these fights, and you're not letting me have them. or you don't have the money to make them.
Exactly. Or you don't have the means to secure them. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And here's the thing, like I want to weigh in real quick on something Steve said, right? He said this is a risk for them. And if they believed that Verge could beat Boots, that risk they would mitigate it, right? But the situation is this, okay? If you are a promoter and you're Oscar De La Hoya, the facts are clear. You're struggling when compared to literally everyone else. When we're talking about the future, when we're talking about short term or long term, you're not meeting the clear goals. And I'm going to tell you, when you're a promoter like Oscar right now, and you have the fewest commodities that you have had, the problem is if you don't get this fight done, that's a failure on your part as a promoter to not be able to secure the fight for you. Only the few fighters you have left at this level. I'm sorry, that's a bigger failure on their parts than anyone else's. And I will say this to add to Steve's point, okay? If we want to blame something, the money is a very easy thing to blame because it's true. But if we want to look deeper at the situation that Oscar finds himself in, Golden Boy, this, a few $1 million is a risk for any company, but it's a bigger risk today for De La Hoya than it was a decade ago, right? They have very few places where they can take gambles anymore. And that is because his demeanor has led to burnt bridges. And he has continued to handle himself as an influencer and not as a CEO, not as someone commanding a ship, not as the leader of troops that are your fighters. And these guys want to fight the best. Remember, that's what you wanted when you were with Bob. And that's why you left. And you said you created Golden Boy for this moment, for these exact things. And I think it was Mike Coppinger who said a week or two ago, has Oscar survived the game long enough that he's become the villain? Like the old Batman line, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And I think that's what's happened with Oscar. I hate to say it. This guy was my favorite fighter growing up, right? I've have like 15 pictures on the wall at my dad's house with him and the whole family, right? I don't want this to be true, but at the same time, I'm not going to lie about it, right? I'm not seeing what I'm seeing.
There's too many islands now. There's too many islands for
very well said.
To leave.
Very well said.
Think about it. Zuffa just popped up. Matchroom's getting more established in boxing in America. Top Rank is literally leasing out fighters, is what I'd like to call it. They'll lease them out to whatever card you need them. Hey, we're getting you fights. We're putting you on every card possible. You can go to a Matchroom card. You can go to a PBC card. You can go to a Ring card on Netflix. You can go to Zuffa if you want to. And then, you still got those are the major players out there. And then you still got the people that are hosting. There's a new promotion hosting fights on YouTube every month. So at the same time, you got to think, it's like you're saying.
Roblox is doing its thing.
His mentality, if I wanted to fight the best and I want to make the best fights, he played a lot of his cards with his other biggest star, Ryan, and it's completely collapsed. That house of cards has failed. Outside of Virgil Ortiz, who else does he have in terms of a star? Not like a really good, and this is where people get that mixed up, not a really good fighter, but what star does he have at Golden Boy? Because think about this. If Zurdo loses to David, is David going to come to Golden Boy or is David going to stay independent?
Exactly. No. You're absolutely right. And I want to real quick touch on this narrative that's been going on. It's been going on for a while now, but it really got turned up, with this Zuffa boxing one that took place over the weekend on Friday. And this narrative from boxing fans that I don't understand. And to a degree I do, right? It's like a lot of it's just nostalgia for them, right? They're used to Bob. They're used to that. They're used to the devil they know, right? And they don't want a new devil coming in like Zuffa, is how they see it. But this narrative that the old guard that has controlled this sport for so long, right, is worth protecting. That's a false narrative. That is not true. This sport has been broken and it would stay broken, right? If the old guard wants to do anything, it might be too late. And desperation moves might have to be made to keep yourself afloat. So when I say, hey, if you're Oscar De La Hoya, if you're going to put all your chips on in someone's corner right now, I think Verge is that guy. And if there's anything that's held him back thus far from being that guy that you said that can, not just draw real big in Texas, but draw on the West Coast, the East Coast, wherever.
Yeah.
It's those fights that he needs to put him there. And there are so many fans that were really on his side early on that have left because of like injuries and things like that. And those things shouldn't be held against him, right? But that's just the way that fans react to not seeing a guy get a fight. So when you put this guy in a position where unfortunate circumstances have held back his career, but now he's in a place where he's ready to push that gas fully forward, then all we see as fighters, as managers, as fans, as trainers is a company that refused to put its money where its mouth is. That's the only narrative we can gain back.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, it's like, I'm not rooting for Zuffa if Zuffa's going to be just another entity taking advantage. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying, that's my only issue with Zuffa is it going to provide a good change for the fighters, or are they going to be restricted like UFC fighters have been?
It's like when AEW first popped up.
Uh-huh.
You want it to be a good thing so the rising water will raise the ships. Every ship comes up, because as much as people don't like to admit it, the AEW forced WWE to revive TNA. And it really did. They revived TNA. They've brought Lucha Libre and the AAA side to a higher platform, which caused AEW to react and bring CMLL up to their front on a better platform.
Great point, dude.
Better if it makes and as much, you got to remember as a fan, even like in the comments right now, I would hope that boxing gets away from pay-per-view. It would be a beautiful thing. And it's hopefully leading their direction with the biggest fights in the world, with, like they did with Canelo and Crawford, and like they're doing with Zuffa. Like Canelo Crawford was on Netflix. Who doesn't have Netflix? I get Paramount Plus through my job. I watch that for free. Just because.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't know that, dude. And great to remind you. I need to keep reminding people because people still don't know. Listen, I had like a dozen people contact me this past week and thank me for telling them on air that to go check with their cable company. A lot of them had it.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, you through your cable company, through your employer. A lot of people, you get this stuff for free.
Cell phone
you might
provider
have
for
signed up for something else that gave you this for free. So it's like you have it already, you just don't know it. But yeah, I think it's something you would want to succeed, to force. Like I said, 10 years ago, wouldn't it have been nice to see all these promoters playing along and playing together? There was no side of the street.
Yeah, word.
If we could have got half the fights like this 10 years ago, and as much as everybody looks back at 2016 right now, imagine all the fights that we wanted that we couldn't get just because there was a wall right there. If this wall was down already, we wouldn't be in this problem.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Listen, Justin, great comment. He says, does boxing do the UFC thing and get away from pay-per-view? I think it's a good move. If you can, I mean, that's the, DAZN had so much good fortune or so much good, what's the word? Like, I don't know. It had a lot of optimism from fans because they were saying all the right things. And the number one thing they were saying is, the death of pay-per-view and all these things. And now you look at the subscription price for DAZN and it's like ridiculous compared to what it was before. I mean, yeah. And the Mario Barrios package with the, what other fight is? Oh, the Shakur fight, right? And they have like a package where like you get DAZN for like 6 months and then you buy and then it comes out to still like $50 per pay-per-view still, right? It's like $70 if you want to just buy one. Like,
even if you just pay for the year though, bro, that's like a couple $100 and it's not even like guaranteeing that, like for me and you, that all those are going to be boxing pay-per-views. Well, you might get a bare knuckle.
Word.
Yeah, bro. Like they were talking about this the other day on the Boxing Voice that they looked at the listing, they brought it up on the Zone, and one of the bare knuckles counted as a free event. So it's not like all these are boxing as much
Yeah,
as
yeah,
the
yeah.
ad leads you on to. Like you're gonna get the Shakur fight, like you're gonna get 12 once a month. But if I get the Shakur fight from this month and they give me bare knuckle the next month, they're gonna make me pay for Barrios and Ryan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It's not a great business plan at all. Like not even a little bit, because you're trying to sell us on the idea that combat sports is just like you know, ice cream, and it's just like it comes in different flavors you like, and you know that they're different sports. They're different sports, and I've said it a million times. I also have to say it a million times. They're different sports in the same way that basketball and volleyball are different sports. Is there a net? Is there a ball? Sure. Do they play on the court? Yeah, but they're completely fucking different. Baseball, cricket. If I explain both of them to a person that's never heard of either sport before, they would think that I'm talking about the same exact thing. Yeah, there's a guy, he throws a ball at a guy, he's got a stick, he hits it, he runs. The whole point is to get back to the original starting point. It's like, oh yeah, it's the same fucking sport. No, they're completely different.
Yeah,
And so to act
different.
like they're not, you know what I mean? And that's the problem that Dana's got, right? Dana's got a real problem on his hands in the sense that he has this UFC fandom that he can take over that's super valuable. But from the point of view of trying to create a boxing legacy, right? Like a boxing franchise, you have conditioned your UFC fans to dislike boxing, right? The rhetoric and the narrative from day one was MMA versus boxing. And, I will say that Rogan and Dana, they were often put in those positions in the media, right?
This
Sparking
week
these
he's been
kinds
trying
of
to spin it the
conversations.
other
But
way, hasn't he? He's been really spinning that yarn back the other way, like, hey, we can like boxing because I'm gonna fix it. That's what he's been
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
all week. And you look at the card. This first card they had was decent, and as much as we hated the glazing of Max Kellerman, the card itself was a decent card. The following up card is a decent card, and then you see, okay, they got Ryo. We know that name in boxing. It'll turn crossover fans from UFC that just like to watch fights. Like if you liked what you watched with Gaethje and Patty, if they get Jai Opatai a good enough fight where that looks insanely brutal, they'll hover around Jai like that's their guy, and it's been their guy. And imagine if they got their hands on a Bam Rodriguez. If they see the flow state of a Bam Rodriguez out there just moving like water but hitting like a brick, taking guys down, they'll turn to that completely. And that's just another thing that Dana needs is if he can build the roster good enough. If he's already got so many cosigns, like if Bud Crawford even just comes back for a fight, I'll fight on Zuffa and just puts them over that way. It's a small domino away from putting the ball in their court like they want.
Yeah, no, I agree. There were a lot of things that I could say positive about this weekend's Zuffa boxing. Number one would be the matchmaking that they had with Julian Rodriguez and Kane Sandoval. Anybody that's seen these guys knew that they were going to put on a banger, and man, was it. Now, I picked it wrong. I'll admit, I thought Kane Sandoval was going to get that one, but shout out to Julian Rodriguez. He really, he fought a really perfect fight in a lot of ways. You could just say that. That said, though, there are issues. There are issues when you have a guy like Jai Opetaia who's, keeps saying that he wants undisputed and he wants, to unify the division. And yet Dana's saying there's going to be a Zuffa belt. You know what I mean? It's like, which is it? Because you understand that when you come out and you say things like there's going to be a Zuffa belt, you're isolating your roster from the other sanctioning bodies. Like, I don't know if you saw Mauricio Suleiman posted a post this week on Callum Walsh's fight week with him in the WBC belt, and he was saying how much he loved the WBC. It was like a trolly ass, post and stuff. And then you saw Ryan Garcia last week. He had the WBC cheerleaders, and he's like, I love the WBC. I don't know what he was on, but at the end of the day, there are lines being drawn, Matt.
That's the counterproductive part to it, though. Is like, Mauricio was trolling about Walsh and all that, But then you give Ryan Garcia a fucking title shot, bro. Off of
Yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah, yeah. No. You can't defend that shit.
He gets a fucking
No,
title
no.
shot.
Again, and it's not to say that the old guard is worth protecting, that the sanctioning bodies aren't very responsible for fucking this sport up, right? Because you and I, you know what you and I benefit from? We benefit from being combat sports fans in general, right? So we've seen everything in wrestling, we've seen everything in MMA. And the one thing that you and I know to be true is that it is hard to convert casual fans into hardcore fans if they don't, or if they're not able to distinguish between the champion. You know what I mean? Like if they don't know who the world champion is because there's so many fucking belts, that's a problem. It's a problem in an era that you had for a decade where the welterweight title was basically split into sometimes 6 parts. Some of these organizations had 3 belts and interim plus another one. It was ridiculous. So to say that there's worth protecting is a falsehood. But at the same time, to say that Dana has the answer is also something I'm very wary about.
But this is where he does have that chess piece, bro. This Zuffa Boxing already recognizes the belt that Jai Opatai has already. The ring belt.
Yeah.
The ring champion.
Ring belt. That's true.
The ring.
That is very true.
Is Bam Rodriguez. If I have all these guys, because remember, they can't have a Zuffa belt till it gets approved. That has to be approved first. They can't just make a champion. You know, they can have all this hype about it, but they can't just create a champion and, hey, this is our champion. If all they have to do is, hey, look, we have the ring champion. This means you're the man. You got to bring those belts over here. And they can make the sanctioning bodies bow to them and just take them out one by one by one by one. And I think you and I both know, because like you were just saying, like my co-host, he'll watch boxing, but it has to be a good fight for him to pay attention to the sport solely. And he's told me too, there's too many champions. All these guys have belts. Like everybody tells me, he's telling me, like, everybody says Gervonta was the best, but there's so many people around Gervonta that have a belt.
Exactly.
You know, it was understood that he said to him that Wilder and Fury were the 2 best heavyweights years ago, but AJ and Usyk are fighting for 3 belts over there. Like, what's the big difference?
Bro, exactly. Those are excellent examples right there. You know, how much more would the heavyweight division have benefited, and thus boxing in its place, because everybody knows that the heavyweight division is the premier division in all of sports, right? Combat sports. The heavyweight title was once thought to be the richest prize in all of sports. Some people still consider it that. Now, what would the benefits have been of having a singular title that those names you just mentioned all fought for? Because we never got Wilder Joshua. That was one of the biggest fights at one point. We never got Fury Joshua, right? And so it's like you said, for any casual fans that were desperately trying to get back into boxing, all they ever saw were 2 sides split, right? So who do you determine is the side that is the best? It's ridiculous to think that the Seahawks and the Patriots can both play and win NFC and AFC championships and not play the Super Bowl and consider themselves both Super Bowl champs. Like, what the fuck? Like, I always thought that the whole, like, oh, they're giving trophies to all the kids stuff was way overblown. And like, now I'm at the age where I'm like, wait, is it? Like, was that a big problem? Have we all been altered to the point? Like, no, it's not. You know why? Because boxing isn't thriving. Because the heavyweight division didn't get revamped to this thing that we all thought it could be. No, what happened is exactly what you said. There were failures. There were shortcomings that were designed into the system of boxing.
And I think that's where Turkey Al-Sheikh was right last year when he said that there needs to be a prominent American heavyweight that brings the activity and action back to boxing. Because when Wilder was on top, everybody was getting back into boxing when Wilder was just nuking dudes because
Americans were right. Yes, absolutely right. And you know what? I'm going to say this too, to add to your point. I don't mean this as a positive. I really don't, but it got a lot of people interested in boxing on both sides, right? There were people that absolutely hated Wilder and there was people that absolutely loved him. And so it was like this thing that, you know, I honestly, like, I wasn't alive during the Ali era, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly the way he was, you know what I mean? Like the way he was made out.
The biggest thing in the nation.
Yeah. And there were people that
the best.
Exactly. And there were like people on one side that thought he was a draft dodger and people on the other side that thought he was an American hero standing up for his rights. Like, it was so split and divided. And yet there was one champion, he fought them all. And at the end of the day, it was like one of the most thriving points in all of sports. Justin, I want to read Justin Owen's comment here. This is
That's my co-host.
perfectly said. Shout out to Matt's co-host, Justin Owen. He said, I am a casual. I just get confused of what belt is what, where's the belt from, or what promotion. It's so confusing. How can two heavyweights have a belt? It's weird. Listen, I'm doing this right here for free. Golden Boy, Matchroom, Top Rank, all of you. This is right here, free. What's it called, Matt? When you have people in a room and they try stuff and you ask them questions about the product?
Oh, man.
What is that called?
I'm blanking on it myself.
And then like people are in a mirror on the other side and they're watching them.
Yeah.
And they're like trying to see how to like make the product better. I forget what they're called.
I'm blanking on it, bro.
They're like
It's like people that do their surveys for them and they just
yeah, exactly. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's like that. This is it perfectly. You are getting the exact people weighing in on who you're trying to convert into hardcore fans, and they're telling you in their own words, perfectly stated. They're confused, guys. They're confused. They don't know who the champs are. So why watch?
They know that Justin Gaethje is going to fight Ilia Topuria. They said that
well
much
said.
right there on the live. They said, okay, he's the interim in March, between March and June, when Ilya's ready. Justin Gaethje is going to fight the champion.
Yep. And we knew what we were getting, dude. We knew it.
Interim. It's just this guy's gonna fight that guy.
Again, it's a little, I'm not gonna say easy, but I think it's a little clearer for guys like you who watch everything, because you're able to see how certain business ends up. You know what I mean? How like what's the driving force behind the decisions that fighters make, managers make, promoters make, in every landscape of the sport. And so it helps you, I think, and people like you to be able to navigate through these times that are really confusing, honestly. Matt, I want to ask you about this one thing. Keyshawn Davis is fighting this weekend against
Jermaine
Ortiz in a fight that I was already looking forward to. But if you saw the antics of Keyshawn Davis this weekend, then you saw him acting an absolute full. It was some of the most cringe stuff I've seen from a fighter in some time. He was celebrating the loss of Andy Cruz. Now, the context here is, yes, Andy Cruz and Keyshawn Davis have been rivals since the amateurs, right? Andy Cruz won every time they fought. I think it was 4 times. And, the moment Keyshawn became pro, that was the fighter they asked about every single time, right? And so you had him celebrating Cruz's win ringside. Sean Zattel, shout out to Sean, had a perfect video capturing the reaction and how happy. I mean, he was like acting like Hulk Hogan. He was like doing the ear thing and shit. Like it was fucking weird, bro. I think he did the Arsenio at one point.
Yeah.
And then a shot outside of the hotel. They're doing the old scene from, I forgot what movie, but they're whipping with the belt and they're like, get that amateur shit out of here. And it's just this whole cringe thing where you're like celebrating a win that isn't yours. And again, the context is this guy who, he was an amateur star, moves up a little too quick, I think is going to be the tail we get from this. Either that or Andy Cruz is just, not a great pro and it all comes down to it. But I think he rebounds. All I know is you haven't fought a fight like that. What are you celebrating? Matt, in your eyes, does Keyshawn need a really big performance on Saturday to wash away some of the cringe that he has put upon himself?
I think he needs a big performance to wash away the past, 6 months? Last week, bro, like you were supposed to fight Edwin De Los Santos and you came in overweight and you were doing the same thing, all this weird ass dancing and celebrating like, ooh, I missed weight. I knew it, but we're going to pay this money. Remember, he even said it out of his own mouth, like, oh, we're going to pay him. We're going to fucking have a fight. And Edwin De Los Santos, or at least his team, I think it was his manager, was like, no, fuck you, bro. We're not going to take this fight just because to give you a free win. No, but yeah, can you really do that as a fucking welterweight and try to fight us at 35? Like, no, that's not how it's gonna work. And to me, like these antics, like I understand, like this essentially was his rival, his adversary. That was
Sure.
they connected them, so at some point they could make a fight. But this lets me know he probably never even wanted to fight Andy Cruz.
Oof.
And don't get me wrong, like I'm on the side of those guys. Like the amateurs mean nothing because they don't. It's a 3-round fight, and if you put anybody like, look at him, Andy Cruz from Elbow, Raymond Murataya was just the better guy on this night. Now, granted, there was
Who's the better pro, right?
There was that nasty ass 118, 110 scorecard, but
yeah, that was nasty, bro. Well said, dude. Well said.
All of them, bro. Like, look at Lomachenko. Lomachenko took on Salido, and he wasn't ready for all the pro tricks that Salido had. Like, yes, granted, there was dirty moments, but you don't see those in the amateurs at all. You don't.
Exactly, dude. Exactly. And by the way, Loma, rebounded, had a brilliant career. He ended up being the king of that division for a while. So, at the end of the day, I do think Cruz bounces back. I think this will be this can be a good thing or a bad thing, right? This could be the thing that makes him make adjustments, right? This could be the thing that, gives him the kind of experience that he takes to the next one. Say it again.
A tough fight, because we've seen give Lomachenko and Teofimo problems.
Yes.
So can you be a guy? Because he went decisions with both of them, and Lomachenko and Teofimo were stopping guys at that point. So can you be the first guy to stop him? Can you be the first guy that looks like it's not a big deal or he's not as big of a problem as he is? You got to step it up and show, bro, because think about it. Not only this, you're on Big Bro's undercard. You got to perform and make the team look good.
Nah, you're right, bro.
People don't, and I've heard it from multiple boxing channels as well that they think Keyshawn's just going to mow him over. I don't think so. I think it's going to be a long night for Mr. Davis if he's not focused.
I'm actually very much thinking what you're thinking, actually. But that said, one last boxing thing I want to ask you. I'm not going to ask you your prediction, obviously, because I wouldn't, I'm not going to insult your intelligence like you wouldn't wait, to gather as much information as you can to give a pick or whatever, or at least an official pick. I mean, if you're leaning one way or the other, that's fine. But I want to ask you, what are you at least expecting from this fight, from this main event? Shakur Teo, ring 6, I believe it is. What are you expecting from this fight? What do you think we'll see? And what could the win mean for either?
I think this is a pound-for-pound win for either, first of all. Especially for two guys that aren't on the pound-for-pound list, this is a pound-for-pound win. I think if Shakur Stevenson wins, it arguably shoots him up into the top 6, 7 of the list. Teofimo Lopez, as it is the guy going up, still shoots him up to at least the 8, 7 spot on the pound for pound, because Shakur Stevenson is a pound for pound guy. Started at 26, jumping up to 40. He's the champion at 3 weights, unified champion at 2 of them. So this is a big win on his resume, probably the biggest win on his resume since Josh Taylor, I believe. He's had some good wins, but not a win the level of Shakur Stevenson. Now, I think this fight is either going to be one of two things: a very high-paced chess match, or it's going to be a stinker. Because somebody is going to have to go first. And if that is decided, like Teofimo did against Lomachenko, where he said, I'm just going to back you up because I know you can't fight backwards. Granted, Shakur Stevenson is a much more calculated defensive fighter going backwards, but Shakur Stevenson has shown to take too far of a leap back, not be in the range to counter, but just to be in the out of range completely to get out of the way. So I don't have a lean right now because I have to see what their mentalities are going into the fight. I need to see the press conference to see what they're saying and thinking. Is there some shoving going around? How does Shakur look at 40? Because he just said Saturday when they interviewed him with Chris Mannix, like, I'm going back down to 35 unless I'm getting a big money fight at another weight class. I don't see any other big money fights outside of a Devin Haney fight, which Devin Haney's already rumoring himself in another big fight. There's at least 2 on the table for Devin at 47. I don't see him coming back. I can really see win or lose. Shakur comes back down and fights Murataya, or he fights a Lamont Roach. Shakur,
That's a good,
Teofimo
very
Lopez,
good point.
Teofimo Lopez, I see the world being his oyster if he beats Shakur Stevenson in a very convincing fashion, because that's another undefeated fighter he would have knocked down off the list. And just looking and building one of the better resumes of this new quote unquote Four Kings era that is here today. He would have one of the best resumes next to Devin Haney's that you've seen out of this generation of young stars. It is a very, very good fight, but yeah, I think it's either going to be a nicely paced chess match where people like you and I who enjoy the sport of boxing will enjoy the tactics, the movement, the high paced processing, an AI level processing in the ring of how they're going to attack and counter attack each other. Or it could be a stinker and we're watching 2 guys make eye contact all night, bro. That's my worry right there. Is it could be one or the other.
I think that's an astute observation there, honestly. Yeah, my biggest fear, Shakur grabs a hold of it early and Tio, gets gun shy. I don't see that happening. I think it's the least of a few bad scenarios for Tio, but at the same time, I've seen it before. You know what I mean? But Matt, do you have time to go over some wrestling real quick?
Absolutely, bro. I got you another 30 minutes. Let's rock out.
Champ. Listen, I want to ask you this before we talk Royal Rumble. We're going to talk Royal Rumble. We're going to talk Final Four. We're going to talk who you got, as the favorite heading into the match. But I want to ask you this question first. Last week on Monday Night Raw, there was a moment in which Paul Heyman made a phone call that made the GM Pierce change his mind on Braun Breaker, decided to meet him next week, which is tonight. And when Paul responded to Logan about who it could have been on the phone, he said that Pierce just got a call from the one guy you don't want to get a call from. He said not even Triple H would want to get that call. Matt, who is on that phone, Matt?
My biggest fear is that it's The Rock. That's my biggest fear. Because it's going to be, here this dude is again, 3rd year in a row. He's going to forcefully cog himself into the plans of WrestleMania, which is already looking that way. Because this happened last year and the year before. WrestleMania plans changed right around the new year, right around this time of January, December, as we're leading into the Rumble. And then on the other side of it, here comes The Rock. My number one answer is it's the Steiners. In the fact that thinking of thinking in a
I haven't heard that. Have you heard other people say that?
No, it's fresh right here in my brain. That's why I'm one of the best.
Man, I love it. And you're giving it to us, bro. You're the champ.
That's why I'm one of the best bookers in wrestling history. People just don't
bro, you're shooting like a 96%. Yeah.
Because you gotta think of it in a Paul Heyman kind of way. Paul Heyman likes power and intimidation. If he's lost essentially the power, and his group is built there to intimidate. What 2 more people in the history of wrestling outside of that Samoan dynasty family are more intimidating than the Steiners? Think about it. Imagine they called up Pierce, because Scott's been active on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure Rick won't be because he's just older. But Scott's been active on Twitter. All these podcasts interact within the world and universe of professional wrestling. Imagine they say, you got a call from the Steiners, and we're pretty sure you don't want no problems, Adam. Because don't forget, you've got skin in the game too. You're a professional wrestler. Why don't you get in the ring with our boy if it's such a big problem? If you think you can just put hands on my nephew, if you think you just put hands on my son, what's the big deal, man? It seems like you've got a problem with the Steiners. And if the Steiners know one thing, it's know how to whoop ass and win belts. So that was be my belief. And like I said, and my biggest fear is that it's The Rock. I would if it's somehow, some way we get some kind of cameo from The Rock, or The Rock shows up Saturday, it's gonna be another one of these years of why is this dude constantly in the way? But yeah, my booking, it's one of the Steiners, or maybe it is that rumor of it's Chris Jericho in a general manager role that eventually takes over for Pierce. Who's to say?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that it's exciting a lot of people about the potential of it, right? I loved your booking, by the way. I do. I want to see the Steiners integrated. I want to see this. Like, I don't know if they're waiting on it, and that I could understand. Or if there's like literally no plans and they don't want anything to do with them. That would be so frustrating. I can't imagine that.
Those
I
are
think if Braun,
really radical dudes to trust. Because
that
remember,
is very true.
got kicked out of
Very
the Hall of Fame
true.
a couple years ago. So it's like, remember they had a sign of Scott Steiner, or was it Rick? They were like, "Do not let this man in here because they're gonna fucking raise hell."
Yeah, no shit, right?
I'm
Yeah,
saying, like,
it would be
those are
really
like
hard to
those
trust
are
they wouldn't
true,
go into
like,
business for
dogs.
themselves.
That's like your friend's dog that they say don't bite, but he looks super fucking intimidating. So you keep your eye on him, like you sit facing that dog
Hey,
all the time,
that's
and let that
that's
dog.
this bitch right here, bro. That's this bitch right here. All right. She bit my fucking 80-year-old grandpa, the sweetest man in the world. She bit him. And I mean, it didn't like she didn't leave marks, but the only 4 people she's bit in her whole life, 3 of them were children, like under the age of 3. And like that's the other thing, he's just a sweetheart with everyone else, except for my grandfather and children. But I want to present this to you here, okay? The idea that it could be Nick Khan. Now, I know what that sounds like. I know you're going, I already know, and I don't blame you, but let me just say it like this, okay?
Rather be Vince.
That would be sick. Here's the thing. I don't mind booking in Vince. I just don't think he's coming back.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll let him back. Or I think if they do, it'll be like a Hall of Fame sort of situation, but certainly not in a, active role. But that would be sick though. That would be dope. But anyway, it's not that I want it to be Nick Khan, but here's what I do want. I want WWE to understand the optics, right? The reason Stone Cold ended up being the defining character, and him and Vince were the defining program that won the Monday Night Wars. And that's not to take away from the Undertaker or the Rock or Mankind, none of that. They all had a participating, thing, but the NWO was the crux of WCW in the same way that Stone Cold and Vince were the crux of WWF. And that won the Monday Night Wars. And the reason that won the Monday Night Wars was exactly what ended up launching the Attitude Era and basically infecting all of wrestling forever and now. And that is the destruction of the fourth wall. See, when I was a kid, Vince McMahon was a commentator, right? I didn't know he had anything to do with the business. Didn't know he was the owner. Didn't know he was the booker. Had no clue. I thought he was the scrawny little dweeb who was the good guy commentator to whatever bad guy commentator was there. R.I.P. Bobby the Brain Heenan. He was the GOAT. That said, once we learned Vince was that guy, and once the story began to not just acknowledge it, but lean into the idea of, the wrestler, right, versus the company, that cemented the WWE's legacy. That cemented their place in the history of storytelling. It's been a long time since we've had an authority figure, right? But the reason that failed was because that authority figure tried to be a character, right? And it was in the form of like Stephanie and Triple H and Stephanie and Triple H and Stephanie and Triple H and a whole bunch of other cast members, Corporate Kane. That was terrible. But ultimately what we ended up getting was a watered down version of what we ended up getting the first time. And what I'm suggesting is that we make it Nick Khan because we have to introduce this narrative that once again the WWE fans aren't stupid. When Vince came out and created the Attitude Era shortly after the Brett stuff, he said, "We're tired of lying to the fans. We think you want something real, and we're gonna give it to you." And they fucking did. And I think now's the time to reestablish that and say, you're not fucking idiots. We hear the Saudi blood shit. We hear all the fucking crazy stuff that y'all are posting about Logan Paul in Japan and all that stuff. We hear it, right? You don't have to acknowledge it. You don't lean into those storylines. Of course not. But the idea that you can somehow continue a successful WWE program at the highest levels without acknowledging the fact that the biggest program this decade was the Cody Rock shit, which established clear perimeters that the bosses are the bad guys and the wrestlers are the good guys. And any wrestler that sides with corporate is a bad guy. Those are clear and simple. And we have to get back to that.
Think about this. You said the biggest program was Cody and The Rock, not even Cody and Roman, who he had the more matches with. And we never saw a follow-up to what happened with Cody and The Rock.
God damn it, I hate you.
Nothing ever came from it. That's the problem. And I see why you want to lean that way, because that's, you want to let the people in on the joke. Or you want to show them how
I like the way you put that.
Is done, but you're still going to like the magic trick. The thing is the way they're going to do it. I don't think, especially watching this season of Unreal, good God, but I don't think they have the mind to allow them to do that. Because I see what you're saying. Because my angle on it would have been like, okay, be like, hey, you guys, we see what you guys are saying. Y'all don't like the Rumble in Saudi. Y'all don't like Mania going over there. Well, guess what? They're the only crowd showing up. Why do you think we stopped doing house shows? Why do you think we stopped going to MSG? You guys aren't here. You guys are just sitting here going through the motions like a wife that doesn't love us anymore. Why would we give you the show? Saudi wants the show. France wants the show. Ireland wants the show. Hell, we're trying to go to Japan, even though Logan Paul can't fucking go. But we're still going to go because somebody's going to pay for the show. And to me, that should have been their angle. That should be their angle of like, look, we're going to give y'all one more chance. We'll bring back some house shows, but you guys got to show up outside of buying your tickets. Because if you look at what they're doing, it's kind of what they're doing. Like, bro, they haven't been to Lubbock in years, and they're back in my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the joke has truth. So it's like somebody is going to pay for it. Saudi will pay for it. France will pay for it. Germany will pay for a fucking show. All these international markets will pay for a show. We don't have to stay where we're not wanted.
Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
You're right. I'll take the L on this one, because here's the thing, right? I don't ever want this show to be me trying to convince everybody I'm right. I would rather this show be a collective effort to get to, a truth. And you're right. They're doing big business. Why even attempt to mess with the metrics? What birthed the Stone Cold Vince stuff was desperation. Vince was losing the Monday Night Wars. The company was headed towards downgrading to a regional company. This is all fact, okay? And the tide turned because Vince got desperate. The show got edgier, right? But today, the product exists almost like a Disney sort of product, right? Where they're trying to rope in as many eyes as they can and trying to convert as many casuals as they can.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do anything desperate when you're winning. When you're on top, when you're winning the race by such a far, leg length, I don't know what they use, but when you're yards and yards and yards away from your competition, you don't have to start, running backwards or doing backflips or, you don't gotta all of a sudden turn the jets on. Exactly. That said though, let me ask you, we're headed to Royal Rumble this week. The road to WrestleMania begins. Do you feel it right now? Does it feel like there could be something big or WrestleMania worthy on the way?
Not fully, because I want to see the new direction that they take getting to WrestleMania now that, Drew McIntyre is the champion. Things seem uncertain with a Braun Breaker to where is he the favorite to win it, or are we leaning back to Roman? If Cody doesn't have a belt, Roman said he's coming back for one of the belts. Do you move him to the one-on-one match with Punk? And it seems to me this year there's not much interest in the women's Royal Rumble to me.
Man, zero, dude. Zero.
Because even if you look at what's rumored and what they're spitting out there, how many times have we seen the combination of Rhea and Io and Bianca and Jade? Like that was all of last year, and you're still giving it to me this year. I think there's a lot of things that could be built off this launching pad, and there's things that I want, obviously, but to me, it's hard to say what's going to be WrestleMania worthy coming out of this PLE this weekend.
That's a very fair point. Here's what Mex said. He said, I wouldn't say that was due to desperation. He's referring to the Stone Cold Vince stuff. They were desperate, but they stumbled across a gem. But see, the point I'm making is that there was rough. But the point I'm making is that there was a clear point where Vince said the direction that's going this way is now going to turn this way towards the edgier. Right. And Stone Cold was the crux of all of that. So it's not that they stumbled onto it. Yes, they stumbled onto a gem. Sure.
They did, because
that gem would have never. Here's what I'm trying to say. Yes, they stumbled.
That wasn't going to be Stone Cold. Remember, that was going to be Triple H.
Oh, that's a fair point too. Yes. Okay. That's a fair point. But listen, the point I'm trying to make is they stumbled onto a gem in a place that they never would have been digging in the first place hadn't they been so desperate, right? That Stone Cold Vince angle never exists unless Vince finds himself in such a desperate position where he feels the need to just knock down the fourth wall. I mean, he didn't like fully knock it down, but he definitely knocked it down far more than anyone had to that point.
He brought it down enough. I wouldn't say he fully knocked it down because people had the primrose glasses on to where you didn't know what was real and what wasn't real. Because yes, they went edgier and they had all these other things happening, but like you weren't focused on like fucking Mark Merrill's matches and Goldust doing crazy shit with Sable in the beginning. We were all paying attention to Stone Cold Steve Austin. We were all paying attention to The Rock and DX.
Well said, dude. That's a good point. By the way, whatever you did, your mic fixed it.
Yeah. And then
I want to go ahead, my bad.
And then, like I said, like I was going to say, WCW kind of started doing what AEW is doing a little bit now and not focusing on the young stars they started building in the first place. Because you got to remember, once they started losing like the Jerichos and once they started losing the Benoits and the Guerreros, the Cruiserweight division, essentially, that's when the attention really shifted because the guys we wanted to see go to the other show. I think. Yeah, he makes the better point right there. The crowd really knocked it down more because of the screw job. And then you had the events like the screw job, you had the events like the curtain call. And that was in the prime era of what is it called? Not like the chat rooms, but just people doing the insider stuff. A real primal era of the insiders, of people writing the dirt sheets and writing magazines. And you had not only that, Vince Russo was literally saying this stuff I'm looking back on it now, and Vince Russo was writing the shit in the magazine. I have some of these magazines from the 90s, and Vince Russo was kind of saying it. And if you go back and watch it, a lot of these, and you go back and watch like not the show, but the histories and the stories they tell these shows, a lot of this stuff is what was going on. It's kind of there.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I want to make it clear too. I think you're right about where WWE's at and why they would or wouldn't pull a trigger on certain things, right? I don't think that that's the right way of looking at it systematically from a storyline, right? Because like at this point, the big bad is Paul Heyman and this like younger group. And so for you to venture down this road without with the idea that you can continue to lean on the biggest stars in the world, I think is it's not a game plan that can be sustained. And I also think that there's some real truth to whatever heat may or may not be going around with Trips and Roman. Now, I want to make this very clear. The only people that really reported this was Slice Wrestling. If you know who Slice Wrestling is, then you know that this isn't, you know, a website you should really take. But exactly, take with a grain of salt. Thank you. But the story was that the Triple H side of WWE is beefing with the Roman side of WWE, and the Roman side contains Paul Heyman, who's more of an active voice, and his voice means more today than I think it ever did when it comes to the top of the card. And it is Nick Khan, right, and The Rock, and that means also Ari Emanuel. So you have the TKO side versus the WWE side, the guys that are there every week putting on this show, right? Getting it set, like building these narratives. I don't think Triple H loves the fact that Roman's just not coming in, right? I just don't think that he loves the idea that Roman is expecting some primo WrestleMania spot without being there to put in the heavy lifting work to make it work, you know, to make it actually big. And so I want to make this clear. I don't buy this story fully. I don't think that's what's going on, that there's some civil war internally in TKO and it's being, you know, pulled apart. Not at all. But I do think that there is a serious divide from a narrative standpoint between what Roman may believe to be the best way to go for this year's WrestleMania and what Triple H has been setting up or plans, right? Sami Zayn, again, is the guy who's supposed to be the underdog going for the WWE title. We saw this last year, right? Right after WrestleMania, and they ditched it. And so I don't know. I don't know what ends up happening. Does Ari Emanuel make another call in February and say, we got to pump up the juice on this shit?
That's what I'm worried about. Is the think about this. There's only been one person they've established as a higher power that can show up on TV, and that's The Rock. And that's not what I want, because if you look at the history, just these last 3 years, since WrestleMania 40 to now, even early on WrestleMania 39, because they were trying to set it up then, The Rock has been in the way, and The Rock has been the cause of changes to where he helps captain these ships, and then he leaves them adrift because he's gone. And he loses.
Next, I want to respond to you too.
Either he loses interest, or it doesn't go his way. And I would, that's just my main problem, is they're gonna go to the casual face. The biggest face that the casuals know is The Rock. I can put The Rock, because The Rock will go and talk to all these people. The Rock will go do late night shows. The Rock will go do McAfee and First Take. The Rock will go on whatever political news company they're affiliated with. He'll go on all these shows just to promote a match he's not going to be a part of. But it's going to make it seem like he created it, he did it, and he's a genius. He's got like The Rock has a real Eric Bischoff mentality, but like the Eric Bischoff of now, not like the Eric Bischoff that was actually smartly doing things back in the day. That he's just this fucking super genius, and everything is so great, and professional wrestling, we're all a part of this amazing, flywheel of things, that the business is just so beautiful, blah, 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 blah. Like, who fucking gives a fuck, dude? If they do something like this, I'm going to lose faith in them again.
Yeah.
And especially if they give Sami Zayn the fucking title on Saturday. Like, I've established this already. If it's like the Orange Cassidy rule, they teased Orange Cassidy as an underdog about to win the title. If this man wins the title, I'm done with that belt and that show. It's stupid.
Whoa. Those are huge, huge statements. Listen,
I told you, what kind of underdog is he? If he, like, look at his record from last year to now when he lost. Or when he lost to Roman to now.
Yeah,
What kind of
no,
underdog is that?
no. I have a huge problem with how WWE tries to put people over after months of just shitty booking, right? Like Maxine Dupree was like a perfect example. Her underdog story worked in her favor, but then they tried to make her not the underdog and yet didn't change a single aspect of her in-ring performance. So like none of the like hardcore like dungeon MMA shit that we saw, like none of that translated to the ring, not at all, right?
Around Otis and Tozawa and doing
Exactly.
Alpha, whatever the hell still.
You can't be thought of as a comedy act, right? And then all of a sudden you're serious. That's not how it works. But I do real quick want to respond to Mex real quick in this. He says, I don't buy this story at all. Triple H has an old school mindset. He fully understands what an attraction is. And I'm not disagreeing at all or debating. What I do want to ask Mex, though, to respond to is, do you think then by that mindset, Drew McIntyre is the champion come WrestleMania? And if so, what is the attraction that you book for him at Mania? I'm interested what you would think. Again, not as a debate, because I don't think you're wrong about what you said. Just more of that's what's been my problem, right? Because if you're Triple H and you're building this story around Drew, first of all, my biggest problem with Drew or with Sammy winning the title would be Drew losing it so quickly after all of what you just did, right? Like it just makes no sense to me. But aside from that, if we just drop that belt back to Cody before WrestleMania, I'm sorry, it is just the biggest limp dick move you could ever imagine. I think,
can't start
honestly,
hot potato with the world.
No, you can't. You can't. Exactly. Well said. And for so many people that had a problem with Roman's long reign, I think it's worth reminding them what it was like during that time when it was being played hot potato with. You know what I mean? It's not a sort of booking you can sustain. It doesn't really help anyone. You know what I mean? When all like at some point the shock wears off, right? And then it's like
nothing. And then Stone Cold rematches him the next day. It's nothing like that. Those are two more interesting people that you believably could see passing the title back and forth, because one was just an amazing force being controlled by a heel manager, and the other one was Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yo, I like that, Mex. I do. He said it's hard to call, but maybe Brock Drew too to give him the win over Brock in front of a crowd. Here's the thing I'll say. Don't hate that. And that is a very good, I didn't even think of that match. And that is a quality Mania match with Drew as champion. I will give you that. My only thing is I don't think they'd have Drew beat Brock only because I think they brought Brock back with the whole intention to have him, getting beat by the next big, you know what I mean? And I think Gunther's most likely to do it. I mean, it could change, I'm sure, but he seems like he's being positioned to do it. So, I don't think you beat Brock before that SummerSlam, date that they keep talking about. But that said, that's a good booking though. Matt, Final Four this weekend's Royal Rumble. Are you ready to even call it, dude? Like, I feel like I need to watch Raw to even have a guess of who it could be.
I can take a shot in the dark right now.
Go for it.
I think your Final Four, you're looking at Roman, Cody. You're looking at Braun. Yeah, Cody, Roman, Braun Breaker, and Jacob Fatu.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
I think that's my Final Four of the men's Royal Rumble. And I think your Iron Man. Ooh, if I was to call it.
Good call. Thank you for that. Who's this year's Iron Man?
I think your Iron Man this year. Man, that's tough. I literally had one in my mind when I brought it up, but I'm stumbling on it now. If I was to pick an Iron Man for the Royal Rumble, I think it's going to be Austin Theory. Just to bring him back, get him to be a little more serious and pump up that character a bit. Austin Theory, with the help of the Vision, is your Iron Man this year.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. You know who I thought of? Obafemi. I think that
Mm,
if you come in and you establish him in the Rumble,
yeah.
automatically casual fans, right, who aren't as
Maybe let him,
familiar with him,
maybe let him
they
break the
start
record.
thinking Kane. They start thinking Roman. They start thinking Stone. You know what I mean? They start thinking of all the guys that have played that Iron Man role. And so I like that. I like that. Mex comes in and he says Jacob
Wrong.
Fatu,
Now,
Jimmy Uso, Brock, and Braun. I love everyone in there except Jimmy. I doubt Jimmy is going to be in that list, but Brock is a very interesting pick. Very interesting. Iron Man is going to be Penta. Oh, Mex. I like that one. That could be a good one.
that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I don't know, man. All I know is that tonight's Raw has got to be, they have to establish some sort of angle, right? Like that's exactly what they would do any other time, but I think it's more important now for two reasons. One, there's been little push towards this. I really think this Saturday Night Main Event did more harm than good to the Royal Rumble. And then
Really?
the other aspect of it is we're on ESPN, right? This is the big leagues now. ESPN is not going to allow WWE to just shit the bed, right? And this Royal Rumble being in Saudi and having to get fans conditioned to tune in at a certain time to the big four PLEs, ready to make an adjustment and watch in the afternoon. WWE doesn't give a shit anymore, right? Because it's all, you can watch it anytime you want. But that said, how many people on a fight night that has UFC, Xander Zayas,
Yeah.
Ring 6,
What?
when will the casual fan tune into the Rumble? You know what
You
I
got to
mean?
remember, this is in the middle of the day. This is 1 o'clock our time.
Exactly. It's a tough call, dude. I think it's a really tough call to say.
And what's weird, you brought up ESPN, bro. I was expecting something today, at least. Like even watching
Right?
even more commercials or somebody doing like a sit-in somewhere or a video
Something,
call
dude.
somewhere.
Oh my
Weird.
God. Good call, right?
I mean, maybe like they got, like I said, they got a couple days. People can call in via satellite, or they can send somebody to go,
For
shake babies.
sure.
And
Oh, no. I'm sure they will. They better, dude. That's such a big law. I mean, there's no way. There's no way we don't get ESPN promos by the end of the week.
Yeah.
Listen, Matt, I'm going to let you go. I appreciate you rocking out with us. We're going to do the Raw watch along if you want to tap in at any point. But you gave me that hour, champ, and
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Hey, no doubt, bro. Shout out to you letting me on and collab. Shout out to everybody in my
Oh, yeah.
chat, in your chat. Everybody over at Talking About with Matt Garces. Just as a cheap plug, we will be live tomorrow recapping the championship round of the NFL playoffs. Lots of news, especially in college football with this bullshit they're pulling with Notre Dame. Lots of news. We're going to recap the UFC fights. We're going to try to coach my guy up on some boxing tomorrow, which this helped him today. Appreciate you, Mario. But
Nice.
yeah, youtube.com/talking about radio. Come tune in with me. Make sure everybody that's over here, all you guys, I see you in my chat too. Make sure you do come subscribe over here to our friends at infghtingFX with Mario.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, over there rocking out on the opposite end of Texas. Mario, appreciate you having me on, bro. I will be
You're the
back.
champ. You're the champ, Machine Gun. Hell yeah. Appreciate it. That was Machine Gun Matt. You can follow him at, again, as he said, Talking About Radio, where they are always talking about wrestling, talking about boxing, talking about MMA, talking about football, basketball, baseball, all sports. And yeah, my man's been a